In this question, you will be asked to give your opinion about a familiar topic. After you hear the question, you will have 15 seconds to prepare your response and 45 seconds to speak.
Some children enjoy playing games outdoors, while others prefer to play inside their homes. When you were a child, which did you prefer, and why?
Please prepare your answer after the beep. Please begin speaking after the beep.
In this question, you will read a short passage about a campus situation and then listen to a talk on the same topic. You will then answer a question using information from both the reading passage and the talk. After the question, you will have 30 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak.
Read an article in the campus newspaper. You will have 50 seconds to read the article. Begin reading now. Now listen to two students discussing the article.
Did you see this article about the library, Sue?
Yeah, I think it's about time they did something like that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I worked at the library last year.
Yeah, I remember that. You were shelving books or something, right?
Right, and I have to say that the shelves were all getting pretty crowded, pretty packed with books. The librarians complained about it a lot, actually.
So there was actually a problem?
Yeah, in fact, there were piles of books stacked in some of the librarians' offices. New shipments of books that the university had bought, but we didn't have room for them, so they didn't go out on the shelves right away, which is kind of a shame, since someone might have been able to use them.
Yeah, this seems like a practical move then.
Yeah, and it's a great idea to give us online access. And I actually think students will find it easier to use these books now because you won't have to go to the library or carry those books around. You could just sit in your dorm room and read.
That's true.
I kind of wish they'd do it with all the books, to be honest. It would make things a lot easier.
Well, maybe someday.
The woman expresses her opinion about the plan described in the article. Briefly summarize the plan, then state her opinion about the plan, and explain the reasons she gives for holding that opinion.
Please prepare your answer after the beep. Please begin speaking after the beep.
In this question, you will read a short passage on an academic subject and then listen to a talk on the same topic. You will then answer a question using information from both the reading passage and the talk. After the question, you will have 30 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak.
Read an article in the campus newspaper. You will have 50 seconds to read the article. Begin reading now.
Now, listen to part of a lecture in a psychology class.
Okay, so scientists did an experiment that demonstrated how this works. The study used long white lab coats, just like medical doctors wear here in the U.S. Now, what traits do we associate with doctors? For one thing, we know they're observant. They need to pay attention to detail. So, researchers wanted to see if people who weren't medical doctors would show this behavior while wearing lab coats. Here's what they did. They got 2 groups of volunteers, and in one of the groups, each of the volunteers was given a lab coat to wear. And in the other group, each volunteer was just shown a lab coat. It was put on the table in front of them, and they were told to look at it. And in each case, of course, the volunteers were told that these were doctors' lab coats. So, to test their abilities, the volunteers had to look at 2 pictures that were almost the same, but not quite. Then the participants had to see how many differences they could notice between the 2 pictures. And here's the interesting thing. The people who were wearing doctors' lab coats noticed more differences than the people who just looked at the lab coats. So, the researchers concluded that by actually wearing the lab coats, people started to act like doctors, to be more observant and better at noticing small details.
Explain how the example from the professor's lecture illustrates the concept of enclothed cognition.
Please prepare your answer after the beep. Please begin speaking after the beep.
In this question, you will listen to a short lecture. You will then be asked to summarize important information from the lecture. After you hear the question, you will have 20 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak.
Listen to part of a lecture in a biology class.
So, we usually think of plants trying to get as much sunlight as possible. And in most cases, it's true. Plants grow toward light. But what's interesting is, in some cases, plants do the opposite. Sometimes plants actually grow away from or avoid light. Let's talk about a couple reasons why. Now, some plants need to find other objects like trees to cling to grow on for support. These plants are attracted to the dark shadows that tall objects cast on the ground. By growing along the ground in a dark shadow, these plants eventually reach the tall object and then grow upward, along it, being supported by it. For example, some vines do this. Vines grow in shadows until they reach a tree or a building. Then the vine will climb or grow up that object. Other plants avoid light in order to conserve moisture. Usually a plant's leaves face upward, so their whole surface is exposed to the sun's rays. However, since intense sunlight makes plants lose water, some plants are in danger of drying out from too much exposure. So during the day when the light gets really intense, these plants change the position of their leaves to decrease their exposure to the sun and therefore retain moisture. For example, a species of bean plant does this. When the bean plant senses that the sunlight's too strong in the middle of the day, it turns its leaves sideways, so the sun only hits the sides of the leaves, the thin edge. This way the bean plant avoids drying out.
Using the examples of the vine and the bean plant, discuss 2 reasons that some plants avoid light.
Please prepare your answer after the beep. Please begin speaking after the beep.